Yeah, let's try this again. Nutters Knoll. Apparently it knocks down all right. Colour grid was right, and yeah. I didn't click the button in sometimes, probably because I changed the battery or something and I'd just forgotten to do it. Anyway, it seems that once the root gets down from the mineral layer into the organic layer, the newspaper cellulose, yeah, let's take this off. It's starting to take off now, so it should go all right from now on. That one's a bit wonky, this one here, but it seems to be getting down to the organic layer underneath. But so on. Oh yes, this one here. What do you think of that? I like the colour on it now. As I said, now we've got the true to life colour. Hopefully, you can see how weird it is. I think that's what they do. They bump up their pots with red caper and red flytraps with potash when they've got the coldest nights going into the brightening days of the coming dry sort of thing. Colours them all up, and if you transplant them, repot them up or something, you basically wash all that stuff out because your medium doesn't have it all in there, because seaweeds don't like salt sort of thing. And yeah, they lose the colour. Yeah, because as I said, none of them seem to stay lose their colour. So I've been doing further work. Yeah, what do you think of that? So yeah, so I've conquered salt. I've done some with copper in, so they seem to be all right. Oh yes, the other thing, in this pot over here, I had a bud coming out on a banana, because it's right next to this bin here, which is producing some, well, the smelly gases, I suppose. And it broke dormancy after only like 3 weeks. It was putting out a bud, and I came home from my first day of starting jury duty, and it was gone. The new bud had gone, disappeared. And after a lot of hunting for the rest of the afternoon, I found it. I dropped it into this water. It swirled up, and I could tell with using my magnifying glass that it had been pecked by a bird. So it was definitely a bird or some animal had attacked it. And so I stuck it in this way, in there. I rehydrated it up and put it in there. And I'm doing this with some of these cuttings. I don't know if you can see this here. What I'm doing is I'm putting the leaf part in there and leaving the bud up in the air, sort of thing. So I'm assuming it's going to start trying to make, building up rooting hormone. And of course it's in the air, so it's not going to rot. But it can't really form roots in air because it wants to form roots underground. So eventually it's going to form so much auxin that it's going to go all the way down the leaf, and it's going to get that leaf part there, the lamina, to produce first probably roots and then shoots. Because you probably know that the lamina part will produce lots and lots and lots of new buds compared to the rest of the leaf. You can produce buds along the rest of the leaf, but it's more likely to occur on the lamina than anywhere else usually. But I'm just, because they always tell you to pull off and leave a nice white fleshy bit of, say, like a dioneal leaf or something. But I think the trick is to actually leave the white part in the air and watch it go red, and leave the leaf part underneath. So the bud part, which can create the hormones, doesn't rot, you see. Even if it's being rained upon, it's still up in the air, you see. Anyway, so I've tried putting in some liverworts and things like this. So this has got both salt and copper in it, and we seem to be doing all right. So, we'll see how we go. But my next stage is to I'm going to do a bucket. I've got to drill a hole in this and I thought maybe the simplest idea is to have, okay, let's go back a step. Let me just go and get the tripod. It's easier for me. I've been doing a lot of weeding this morning, so let me just put this in there, and I'll go and get the tripod. I wanted to tell you this anecdote from. I've just come back from the shops. It was very funny. I thought, might as well tell you now while I'm setting up. I went down the shops, and this girl here said, "Do you want your receipt?" And I said, I did the usual thing. Yes, please. You know the missus is like. I said, I should do it like the Big Bopper. You know what the missus is like, sort of thing. And she didn't know who the Big Bopper was, basically. And I explained, one that died in the air crash, along with Richie Valens and Buddy Holly. Apparently, Buddy Holly lost his whole cranium, went straight through came out of his skull, apparently. That's the information that's come out recently. So, and I explained, the Don McLean song, American Pie. That's what that song's all about. He's going down to the levee, reminiscing down the levee that now the music's gone, he can't get the girls, basically, because there's no music on the radio, no new exciting music on the radio to excite the girls, and he can't get the girls, basically. Because we lost, in one foul swoop, we've lost Buddy Holly, the brown-eyed handsome man, and Richie Valens of O'Donnell and La Bomba and the Big Bopper of Chantilly Lace fame. Can you imagine what they could have done in another 2 or 3 years at the pace that the music was coming out at those times? But anyway, she didn't know that, so I suggested that she go on YouTube and look it up, sort of thing. Look up the Big Bopper and Chantilly Lace. I mean, she's gonna. I may have made a 50s, 60s music convert. You never know. But anyway, so I'm basically coming to the conclusion. This is my sort of, after nearly 50 years at the coalface, 50-year apprenticeship basically on CPs, is that CPs, if you want to have like a generic sort of soil profile type, basically, you want a mineral soil on the surface and organic underneath. So basically, and your organic probably it's going to be low in iron sort of thing. So you don't want to get any of that H2S, but you probably want carbon disulfide being produced and coming up to the. So this takes me to the idea of all this idea about terracotta pots. They say don't use terracotta pots because they will salt up and things like that. And I'm saying, well, if you water from the top, and like in our wet here where it rains, things like the soil will never dry out now until about October sort of thing. So they will stay damp or wet until October. So you don't really have to worry about watering them basically doing this. You can always set them up on floor foam blocks, things like that. But you don't have to water them, basically. You only have to worry about that during the dry. And you could either, as I said, use the tray method. But my argument is maybe you don't want to use terracotta pots because they're porous and any carbon disulfide will go straight out the side of the pot. So it's really nothing to do with sorting up. They're sort of misdirecting you. They're saying it's for this reason, but really you want to use plastic pots because you want to get the gas. So all the roots... basically the plants grow from the roots up, basically. So, you want to get those roots down there. As I said, the plants seem to take off as soon as they get into that organic layer sort of thing, that lower organic level. Now you want to ask yourself the question, where on the planet do you get soils where you have like a mineral surface and organic underneath? It's quite unusual, isn't it, you see? The only thing I can think of is things like Chernozem soils, which are from the Mongolian steppe sort of thing. They are sort of like that. And what grows there is rhubarb, of course, and then you've got its bigger cousin Gunnera, and you've got its lower cousin Rumex. And you got to think, because Rumex is in the buckwheat family, and there's a lot of these plants that have this term buck in them. They seem to have explosive growth sort of thing. A bit like liverworts coming back from dormancy, almost like an explosive growth sort of thing. Yeah, I tried putting this one in. Yeah, took it out of another pot and put it in as a rescue. It's put up a flower. It's struggling. Basically, you can't just rip the roots. It had quite a lot of roots on it, but they have to make new root fibres, root hairs sort of thing. Am I still on spot, Cullen? Yes, I am. Maybe I should go to, I don't know, try general. Anyway, so that's the idea. So that's my general idea for generic soil for CPs is mineral horizon, an M horizon rather than an O horizon on the surface, and with organics underneath. Because normally they talk about an O horizon, which is for an organic layer. Like in a pine forest, you've got the pine needles, and you've got basically sand underneath, and you get all this like coffee-coloured soil. And most of these CPs, you've noticed, they're either coastal, and of course in the land down under with the most CPs, we've had these giant inland seas, so vast and so heavy that they've actually pushed part of the continent down, so the rivers on the eastern side flow inland, apart from the other side of the dividing range, as opposed to WA where the rivers flow normally to the sea. You know, most continents the rivers flow to the sea. Well, in this continent it's a little bit different. Over on the east side of the continent, on the west side of the Great Dividing Range, the rivers flow inland to these salty lakes, but which are sort of basically left over from the inland seas. We've had at least 3 vast inland seas in prehistoric past, and there's so much salt in our continent that the early explorers could actually navigate the tributaries of the major rivers in the driest states of the driest continent in the world, using just a simple hygrometer. And using this simple hygrometer, they could actually calculate roughly the tonnage that was going into the water every single day, or every single week, or every single month, or every single year, or every decade, century, 1,000 years, I think. And it was an absolutely astonishing amount of salt. And it's almost unbelievable. But the hygrometer doesn't lie, sort of thing. So my idea is to do, fill this up to the line sort of thing, the usual thing. And of course it's not going to focus now because I'm on spot collar. And then I'm going to crush some of this up. Hang on. Let's go back to spot culling. You won't believe me, I know. Crush some of this up, just underfoot sort of thing, and leave it on the surface of it, because the Unispo Unicellular will be consistently damp during this time of year. It should make this consistently damp. Maybe that's the reason this takes 4 to 6 months to get going, because it's hard to wetten up sort of thing. So that's my ideas there, basically. Just, I don't know, it's a bit of a short one, but maybe the next clip, or later on today, or maybe tomorrow, or later on in the week, as I've got jury duty, is to so basically I think I'm done. Basically I've come to this basic conclusion that some of the materials that you get form waxiness. They always talk about waxiness over in WA soils. They're hard to re-wet once they dry out. I found that salt will actually mitigate some of that waxiness. But then again, the salts are drying, so you've got to compensate that. And of course, we learned from our salt that is like 1,000 times wetter. Basically, we can add that, and then you don't have any problem with the salt. You've got things like with copper. They say the CPs don't like copper, but then you've got to answer the question. Why is copper the highest micronutrient found in? One of my legs has gone into there. Why is copper the highest micronutrient found in peat-related humices, basically? So So anyway, do like my deadly nightshade. Came up and grew to this size in 3 weeks. Couldn't believe it. Came up about February sort of time, and shot up. So this is the hottest time of the year. Couldn't believe it. The leaves would like wilt on towards the end of the day, and then come back at night time, sort of thing. Pushed itself up for about in 3 weeks to this sort of stature. Birds love the seeds, but as we learned from previous years, it can settle these seeds. The birds can eat them all, but it's like other things, like your dandelion, your glid, and other things. It seems to only come up in certain places. Where it does come up, it seems to come up again and again, sort of thing, but only in select locations. It's like a soil specialist sort of thing. So we might be able to learn more. But it seems to be more resilient than tomatoes. But then again, I've got some wild tomatoes coming up on the side of these pots sort of thing, and they're not growing all right. So what, you know, they say that tomatoes can be hard to grow, but apparently not at certain locations. Now, I think we're just growing them all wrong or something. But as the White Sox sour guys say, if you can grow a tomato, you can grow CPs, but they never really explain what's so special about the tomato. But there's been some major international best-selling books about growing tomatoes, you know, and yet still people have trouble growing tomatoes. And I'm thinking, well, is it like a misdirection? It's a bit of a con. They show you all these things in the book, you know. Do those techniques in the book actually work, or are they failures? I know David LeGood talks about fetid water, so I've got to do more research about fetid water, considering our idea about carbon disulfide and the fact that these things here don't seem to be going dormant now, still growing, only basically 4 feet away from a compost bin. I've tried in the past using. Oh, that's what the reason. One of my legs was loose. That's why it came down into the bucket. There we go. It was loose and hadn't been stoppered, so it came down into my bucket of stuff. So it was an accident. I've lost my train of thought now. But David LeGood talks about fetid water. You've got to put fetid water on your crops and things like that. So I've got to look into more of that, because I can see a relationship between, you know, your compost bins and things like carbon disulfide and things like that. So you get your plants to sort of grow sort of thing. But I've done the work, and I've basically come to that conclusion. Oh, you got some nice liverworts growing there, sort of thing. And as I said, I've sorted out all this nonsense about salt and this idea about copper being bad for your plants. Well, you've got to solve the problem, because all the books say that copper is the highest micronutrient found in peat and other peat-related humices. So you've got to tackle that problem and be able to answer that problem. Why is copper so deadly, and can you solve the problem about copper being so deadly, sort of thing? So, yeah. Anyway, so I thought I'd just do that, and this one's a failure. You can see the moss is burning in certain parts. That's a really high one I did. I did that just for completeness, you know, the term completeness. I did that for completeness. So anyway, yeah, I thought, hey, this is crazy. I've got to go far out, because I'm getting sort of incredible results. I mean, I can't believe it. I've got to kill something. Otherwise I won't believe it myself, sort of thing. It's got to be able to kill a plant. I said I've killed thousands of stuff, thousands of fly traps and capes and stuff in my past. I've got photographic evidence going back to on celluloid, basically, and old videos and things like that. So I've definitely put in I've paid my dues basically and put in the hard yards, and nearly 50 years. By the end of this wet, it will be 50 years. 50 years of the apprenticeship sort of thing. I think I will have, as I said, my basic conclusion is you want a mineral soil on the surface as an M horizon, and you want organics underneath. And once the roots get down to the organic layer, they'll go gangbusters, you know. But you've got to cultivate that cyanophyta in the soil, basically. And once the cyanophyta is in the soil, it will stay in the soil. As I said, it's like the bottles. I've done all that bottle work. Once you've got the bottles, it's almost like they're there forever. It's almost they're almost like immortal, almost. And you think, is there anything really growing in the bottle, or is it just like a I've got a dye in there, a colouring agent? Is it just a colouring agent from dead organisms? But you can take out an aliquot and subculture and inoculate another bottle, and if your temperature is 28 degrees or above, you can grow a whole new bottle in 9 days, basically. I mean, that's really fast growth. And if those organisms are associated with the roots to your plants, that sort of speed of growth surely should be associated with the speed of growth for your plants or things. So, as I say, I'm tending to get the impression that cyanide, I do like salty water, salty soils, but there, as I said, there's a trick to it, because salt is rather drying. You got to add in this stuff that's basically a salt that doesn't burn your plants, basically makes the things 1,000